Star Wars 7x7 episode 2301. Season 2 of The Mandalorian debuts on Disney Plus in just a few short days, and leading up to that, we're going to do a series of episodes where we look back at Season 1 of The Mandalorian and bits of information shared that we may have missed upon first glance that's worth talking about as we evaluate the upcoming Season 2. Punch it! Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7x7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy. And thank you so much for joining me for it. So, here is the scoop. We are looking at Chapter 1, which is The Mandalorian, directed by Dave Filoni, written by Jon Favreau. And here are a few additional notes about the Mandalorian, about the Mandalorians themselves, about the whole situation that we find laid out for us in that first episode. First of all, it's made clear that the Mandalorian only uses deadly force when it's used against him. So if you think back to the very beginning, to the bar scene on, I believe it's Mando Kreis, K-R-E-I-S, where he picks up Horatio Sands as the blue-skinned Methrol creature. That bar scene, like, he does attack the people who are threatening him, but he only knocks them around. He does not actually do anything that is lethal until the Quarren shoots at him. And that's the point at which he shoots the door controls and makes the guy get sliced in half. Now, I guess you could make a case for the possibility that he would have done that anyway, except, you know, just based on the way you saw him knocking people around, it didn't look like he was using lethal force. So that's something, I guess, to keep in mind with the Mandalorian, is that he is only using lethal force if it is used against him. Second of all, it does seem that Mandalorians themselves are kind of a rare sight. In a future episode, we're going to hear that the Mandalorians in this covert that's hiding on Navarro are only allowed out one at a time, and we'll talk more about the strangeness of that when we get to that particular episode. But that kind of informs the fact that we have a Mandalorian walking into this bar, and it certainly catches everyone's attention. And Kuiil, the Ugnaught, who is the guy who guides the Mandalorian to where he can find the asset, it's also rare for him to see a Mandalorian. He's never met one. And as far as we can tell, even though Mandalorians tend to have a reputation as bounty hunters, or at least, you know, a lot of them we've come across as bounty hunters in the Star Wars galaxy, the Mandalorian himself, Din Djarin, seems to be the only Mandalorian in the Bondsman's Guild that is run by Greef Karga. And that, I think, is part of what I would arrive at as being the biggest conclusion, which is that if Mandalorians are still in hiding 5 years after the fall of the Empire, then that also suggests things are not going well on Mandalore. And we've talked about that a bit on the show, the possibility that the planet Mandalore is still under the Empire's control, that Moff Gideon's possession of the Darksaber suggests that he is in charge on Mandalore itself. And it would certainly explain why the Mandalorian, why Din Djarin, does not have any love for the Empire. And, you know, his initial refusal of Imperial credits being paid for the jobs that he turns into Greef Karga near the beginning of Chapter 1. You know, he says, I don't know if you heard, but the Empire is gone, right? So the way that's positioned is that this is merely about, you know, galactic events. But later on, when reference is made to the New Republic, he's going to call the New Republic a joke. And we know, of course, that, you know, the Empire did not treat Mandalorians well. So this whole business about refusing Imperial credits for a job and accepting calamari flan, even though it's only half, that seems more like a moral calculation than his initial stated the Empire is gone kind of calculation. And yet, he kind of goes against that a little bit when he takes the job from the client, aka Werner Herzog. I guess you'd have to wonder if part of the motivation is that he's willing to work for them because the Beskar is presented as the means of payment, right? If it had just been Imperial credits, would he have actually taken the job? It's hard to say for sure. He might have, you know, just to be able to walk out of there alive. He might have and then exchange them for calamari flan later because he doesn't want to be carrying around Imperial credits. He doesn't want to use that money. Certainly it's a surprise to him to find an Empire presence on Navarro, and so maybe this is just him going along with the job to find out what they are really after, what they're about. But ultimately, I do think it is just about money insofar as he is working to take care of the Mandalorian covert or contribute to it, and certainly finding out that he's going to get paid in Beskar, yeah, I'm sure that makes it, all the more attractive as far as, like, I'll actually do the job even though I definitely have no love for the Empire. And speaking of the money, it's worth pointing out too that the Mandalorian turns in all the calamari flan as well as the Beskar, right? The Beskar, of course, was a no-brainer. Naturally, that was going to be given to the armorer, but he's turning in all the money. And that does kind of raise questions about how this whole covert thing works. And I'm surprised no one has discovered it yet. I mean, he's on what appears to be, a semi-crowded street and looks around and then steps into a doorway that has a heavy curtain over it. And then is seen going down a spiral staircase. Like, these folks are hiding, but this doesn't seem like they're very well hidden, and it doesn't seem like he's being very sneaky. So I'm, rather surprised that this is all sort of a secret operation. Two other quick observations and then a bigger one coming up. As far as the Razor Crest goes, just a flag that carbon freezing technology apparently has gotten much better in the 5 years since Return of the Jedi, because now you can pack it into a ship, even though it's a pre-Empire ship, according to the exchange that the Mandalorian has with his bounty at the beginning of the episode. So that seems to be a bit of an upgrade. But he's not doing a very good job at protecting his weapons. I mean, that guy is able to just go bleep, blop, bloop on the control pad across from the thing, and it just opens up. Like, how is he able to figure out how to open that weapons cache? It seems like a very poorly guarded situation. And before I get to the last thing, I do just want to give you a quick reminder. Please, if you have not rated or reviewed the podcast on iTunes, and that's where you're listening to it, well, I hope you will take a few seconds today, just today, to give it hopefully a 5-star rating, and even maybe take an extra 30 seconds to a minute and just type in a couple of quick sentences in the review to say what you like about Star Wars 7x7, why it's a daily dose of Star Wars joy for you. It helps other people who are looking for a daily dose of Star Wars joy in Apple Podcasts find it for themselves. I really appreciate the support. It does help a lot. So thank you very much. And if you have done that already, then please know that I'm very grateful for you as well. So final observations. First of all, we still don't know who hired all of those crazy mercenaries that are guarding the child. We don't know, who is paying them, why they were there, why they're hiding out there, what they're waiting for, any of this. Like, what is the point of them being there with the child? What was their end game? Like, we have no idea. We just know that they were there, they were encamped, they were trying to, do their best to prevent it from being taken for sure, and bounty hunter after bounty hunter went there and got killed for their efforts. So why did they have the child? How did they get the child? What were they doing there? What were they waiting for? This still has not been answered. And then there's the fact that IG-11 has a contract that says he has to terminate the asset, right? So obviously the Mandalorian was told to bring the child in alive, although proof of termination would be acceptable for a lesser fee, but he was given the option. So since Mandalorian and IG-11 are part of the same guild, they're both part of the Bondsman's Guild, then it makes you wonder when IG-11 got the commission, because we don't know that, whether he got it before or after the Mandalorian. I think the presumption is after, and maybe with the argument that the client and Dr. Pershing had about, whether the asset would be alive or dead, maybe the client just kicked Pershing out of his office and kept him locked in his doctor's lab so that everybody he brought in afterwards, he was like, yeah, kill the thing. But that is a bit of an unanswered question as well, and hopefully we will find out more about the motivations for capturing or killing the child in season 2 of The Mandalorian, presuming that Moff Gideon is behind this somehow, but if not, then who is? And that is going to do it for this episode of the show. Thank you so much for joining me for it, as always, and may the Force be with you, wherever in the world you may be.
Star Wars 7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2020 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.